Hey, what's going on? This is Rad, the host of SOFREP Radio, but you already know that because you clicked on the title and you even know who my guest is. But like a secret, I want to tell you first, go check out our merch store, sofrep.com/merch. We have all of the branded equipment. We have like new hats. I believe new shirts are dropping with new logos on them. So go check that out. And then also the book club. So sofrep.com/book-club. I say it often to my new listener, /book-club. Go sofrep.com. Check it out. Great books curated by the guys behind the scenes in the special operations community for guys and gals just like you who want to read about that. Now, to introduce my next guest is unique because he's broken the sound barrier, I'm sure, and just lives life to the fullest. Probably drives fast, takes chances, but I believe he wears his seatbelt. His name is Ed Rush, and he has a book that we're going to talk about, which is God Talks. He also has The 21-Day Miracle, Warrior, Take the Shot, 5-time best-selling author, all over the place. Ed Rush, welcome to SOFREP.
What's up, Brad? Awesome to be here. By the way, so I just sold it a few years ago, but I had a collector's edition Corvette, a 2018, beautiful Corvette. And it's a horrible combination for a fighter pilot because I drive fast anyway. Like when I'm driving my family, like in the past SUV, I drive fast. But like when I'm in a Corvette, I drive really fast. But the greatest part about this is I've talked myself out of 19 out of 20 of the tickets that I've been pulled over for. I have a technique. It's a very simple technique. I'll tell you nothing behind the scenes. You admit everything. So when the guy says, do you know how fast you were going? You say, yes, sir. I was going 84 and it was a 65 zone. And it takes them so off guard, they don't know what to do. And that's how we'll start today.
Oh.
The best piece of driving advice I could ever give you. So,
It's just be straight up, be like, hey, yeah. Oh, they're like, but you're not lying to me. And you're not trying to pull it over. You're not saying you're like a sovereign citizen and you're not going to roll your window down. You're like, I was doing 84.
It's crazy. So the human brain, works off of patterns, and police have a pattern, right? They pull up, the person gets upset, they tell them how horrible the police are, they cry. So they're used to that, right? So when you nail the number, because they've got a radar gun, right? Just like, radar on the front of the F-18 that I flew, and it's very accurate. So if you were going 84, it shows that you were going 84, like it, he knows it. The digital readout on the Corvette knows it. And so I'm gonna get myself in trouble right off the bat. So, but I have a lot of friends who are police officers. I told them about this. So they always say, "Sir, do you know why I pulled you over?" And I always say, "Yes, sir, I do. I was going," and I say the speed, and I say the speed limit, and it so discombobulates them. They literally have to take your license and registration to make sure you're not like a terrorist or whatever.
Right.
But so they come, they do it, they check out, you're not a terrorist, and they come back, and they always go, you seem like a good guy. I'm just going to go ahead and let you off with a warning. And they say it the same way. I'm just going to go ahead and let you off with a warning. I had one guy out of 20 who gave me the ticket. I have to say he was holding true to his guns. I was the one shocked that day.
Yes.
But that's not even on the script of our interview discussion. That wasn't one of the questions.
No, and I love it. No, because it's real, right? And what's funny is I'm right outside Hill Air Force Base here in Utah. And I have a friend who flies F-16s. And his call sign's Moses. So if you watch this, Moses, okay? Because he was like 34 when he commissioned. So, So Moses, okay? Again, you're going to know who you are. He also has the Corvette, right? Driving on base 20 miles an hour in a Corvette has got to be like the most daunting thing for the Corvette to ever go. Like so slow. Like, you can't go fast. I mean, it wants to go fast. First gear, you're like 90 miles an hour. Plus you have a heads up display system in that. Of course you have that vehicle.
It gives you, you can time 0 to 60 in the Corvette. So I used to go up to the mountains and set the timer and just see what it's doing. I had full manual, by the way, 7 speed. So now we're talking my language, man.
Oh, yeah, dude.
American muscle right there, baby.
It is. And so what do you think about these is it the C8s that have the engine in the rear of it? Are you a fan of that?
Yeah, so the C8 is the mid engine.
Oh,
right?
mid-center. Yeah.
So the Corvette had a C1 through 7. The Corvette had a massive engine in the front, basically nothing in the back, which is a major issue for the first series of Corvettes. That car would turn, was one of the worst cornering cars when you were up to speed, because when you're driving fast, the weight actually moves towards the back of the car. So, for example, the Porsche, I raced Porsches in Atlanta in Road Atlanta. So the Porsche 911, yeah, it's great. It was fun too. speed. This anything that goes fast, right?
Yeah.
So the Porsche has the engine in the back, right? Which means it actually gets great. It turns well under acceleration or under braking, but it actually doesn't turn very well when you're under acceleration because your weight pushes all the way to the back. Well, this mid-mounted engine is designed to solve that whole thing. Put the engine right in the middle, I know some of my buddies are executives at Corvette. They had some issues with the airframe twisting a little bit when they first built that car, but it is awesome, dude. That car is a phenomenal car, and Corvette. Thank God for Corvette because General Motors hasn't had a good 20
supercar.
years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, what other supercar American made other than maybe but the Corvette, it's like so available. I don't really know. Like Ford has like a McLaren,
Mustang.
but you got to have some dough to shell out for a McLaren or some type of Shelby. But a Corvette, I mean, for what it is, you can get them in the 80,000 for a C8, you know, maybe a nice 2023 or something. I mean,
So the McLaren, so this is the common question I got with my Corvette, because the Corvette is 2-seater, right? Left seat, right seat, drivers on the left, like a normal American car. And everyone asks, I have 4 kids, right? It's a family of 6. So everyone always asks me, they said, don't you wish it had more seats? I said, I wish it had less seats. I wish it had one seat. Like when I was flying fighters, I had a car. I sat in the middle of the car. There was no other seats. And McLaren just came out with a car. They're producing 25 of these. They're $4 million a piece. Just watched the video on it. That is literally a single seat car, just like a Formula One. I'm like, dude, sign me up for that.
So you're just wrapped around it. It's just like your Snowpiercer, where you're just the handler of the vehicle. You just got to do if you know the movie, the little hand gesture from Snowpiercer, it takes the human element no matter what. Okay. The machine still needs the human element. Now, you said something earlier about the F-18 having radar. Of course it does. Well, I haven't flown an F-18, Super Hornet A, or any of those. The radar, does that tell you how fast, like, UFOs coming at you? If you have an unidentified flying object, is that, you're like, hey, it came at me at like 700 knots.
That's good. That's a good question. By the way, I just did a podcast. It was like 2 weeks ago. The entire podcast was about UFOs. We talked like an hour and a half. And I'm happy to talk about this topic too. By the way, there's no topic off limits. There's some topics I'm not very good at talking about, but there's no topics off limits. And yeah, so the APG 6573 is the sweeping radar that's in the front of the Legacy Hornet. I flew ABCD model, which is Legacy Hornet. The EFG were our Super Hornet variants. So I was in the Marines. The Marines typically don't have a lot of money, so we had the Legacy version of the airplane. What happened was, as they developed the Hornet, the newer radar is a phased array radar. It's not a dish. The normal radar dish moves back and forth, sweeps back and forth, sends its signal downrange, receives its signal on, switches on and off to receive and send. A phased array radar basically is a bunch of radar microchips that send a beam wherever you want to send a beam. So it actually allows you to shoot radar beams simultaneously into different directions, which a traditional dish can't do. You have to wait for the dish to come back and forth. So the newer models, like for example, the F-22, F-35, all have phased array. Aegis cruisers, Patriot missile batteries are all. This is not new technology, but the radar in the F-18 that I flew was the normal Legacy radar, which was capable of picking up basically anything that was flying, as long as it could pull it out of whatever the ground clutter was. I didn't see any UFOs. I know some guys that did, or at least thought they did.
So thought they saw something, huh?
I mean, there's the crazy thing is so the government declassified a video. The video was shot back in 2014.
Right.
They declassified it in 2021. And the most fascinating thing, Rad, about this, like during those first 2 years of COVID, like 2020 to 2021, the news cycle was only about COVID. Like the only thing anyone ever talked about was COVID and the election. That was it. Yeah. And so like right in the middle of that, the government released this video and they're like, here's this video. So like UFOs kind of exist. And like, that's kind of, that's what they said. And then nobody's covered it. Nobody talked about it.
Did they sit in a congressional hearing or something and even like talk about it? And like, they were like, yes, but everybody's like, okay, let's not all die. UFOs are here. That's cool, but let's not,
They like said it out loud, and I have some local TV that will call me if something happens. And they said, "Can we send a crew down to your house?" I said, "That's fine." So they said the government just admitted UFOs. I said, "Well, the government's sneaky because technically UFO means it's a flying object that we have not identified, right?" Yeah. So the government didn't say there's aliens, even though there probably are.
Right.
The government just said, "Hey, here's something we have not identified." But I will say there's some videos, there's some forward-looking infrared FLIR footage from 2 separate F-18s watching something do something that things can't do.
Not normal.
The second footage, you can find it online. It's not classified. We can talk about this all we want. Well, the second piece of footage shows a single aircraft moving from like 10,000 feet to 80,000 feet and then back down again.
Just very quickly.
I'll just tell you, no airplane, if you're a pilot inside there, your body will be destroyed by the time you get to 80,000 feet, unless you're in an SR-71 in a pressurized cockpit, or unless you're in a spaceship. But then coming back down again, same problem. So,
yeah, because your body's just going like so fast up and down. It's just not even.
I mean, most vehicles can't even do that. Like, you have to have a very specialized aircraft. The F-18 max ceiling was 50,000. The F-16 that your buddy flies, Moses, 50,000 roughly. Yep. There's airplanes, Su-24s. We've got, intercept airplanes that we build that fly higher than that. SR-71,
Blackbird.
Blackbird. Yeah, you've got airplanes that are like surveillance, U-2, that fly over that. But you have to have a very specialized airplane to get there. And we have radar tracking for looking infrared as well. And actually, it was the Aegis cruiser that was tracking it, like highly accurate altitude, that shows this thing go from 10,000 feet to 80,000 feet and back down again in the space of like 2 minutes. It's impossible, by the way. I mean, it's possible, but like not with current technology that we have.
Right. And here in Utah, we have a place called Skinwalker Ranch, which is like south in Vernal, Utah. And a friend of mine owns it. And he was a former security forces for 23 years in the Air Force and wound up owning this place. And it's called UFO Alley. Okay, because like there's all sorts of things, and like the Navajo have like the skin walkers, okay, the thing, with the hands. So here in Utah, it's really, there's some lights. You just got to say, hey, it's probably, okay, I'll tell you something. So we do war games. I do airsoft war games on a large scale, and we were guarding a SAM site, literally like out in the desert. It's all built out. The whole area is all built out, and me and my guys are taking watch. And I'm like, I've got night vision on. What's the odds that I'm just going to like drop my night vision down and look and see somebody at the SAM site? Okay. And it's pitch black, 3 a.m. and I'm just like, I'm going to do this movie moment right now. No, they're not there. I'm going to do this movie moment right now. No, not there. But what I see is this bright light in the sky from my PVS 14s. And I was like, yo, Joker, we're not under the flight path. And I'm elbowing him. He's like kind of behind me in the bunker. And he gets up on it and he looks. And we're like, Ajax, wake up. Look, check this out. It's a total 3 a.m. ambush. I'm on guard and they're just kind of resting. So I'm just like getting their attention. And it just comes at us in this weird white light and just kind of disappears. But I wouldn't have seen it if I didn't have my nods, because then it just like amplified. So to get back to the SAM site, here I am. That happens. We're back quiet again. And again, I go for that movie look, and there they are. 3 guys coming into our SAM site to try to like dismantle it. And it was just like pop, 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 pop. I love doing war games. It's very super awesome. And it gives us that shoulder to shoulder camaraderie that a lot of folks are looking for. Like, especially guys that get out of the military, they're like, where do I go? Who do I turn to? How can I get back into a team? If it's softball, is it some type of outdoor sport, or maybe war games with us, where we're just like, let's have a fun time, dude. You're just going to unbuckle your commuter seatbelt, come out to the desert with us in some gear, and we're going to run around and do some crazy fun times in the desert, and just get your mental bearing just straight, maybe just a little bit, right? So
what did you see?
So we chalked it up to like it had to be an airplane that just went black, because it was a light coming in, and it was just this really weird hourglass shape. It wasn't like a circle. And I'm just watching this thing come in, and we were all watching it, and then it just kind of disappeared. And so we just thought, well, maybe it just turned. Maybe it was a aircraft that had turned, and we just didn't see any more of its light signature. Yeah. But I mean, I'm out in the middle of the desert, and Dugway is to the west of me, and then south is like all shut down airspace for Area 51 and Dugway. So we fight out in those desert lands out there, away from everybody, and who knows, right? Who knows? I've been marching out there with my dad when I was a little kid, and we'd go rabbit hunting. My dad was a former Green Beret, so he's like, hey, Aaron, let's go out a little rabbit hunting. I'm going to take Aaron out. We'd go out to the desert, and he's like, we're walking. He's like, why do you think there's a C-130 landing out here? And he would just bring that up like a normal question. With landing gear down, it's up here coming on into something, And why is there a stovepipe popping out of the ground right here, do you think? As we're looking for rabbits in the desert.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, Dad, now that I'm older and he's no longer around, I just think about these little moments of him taking out to the desert and pointing out these little things. And I was like, he was showing me, like, you know,
Yeah.
Some things, bro. I'm just saying. Okay. And
That's
so
good.
it's probably still out there. And, you know, I hope he's where God talks to him right now. I'm going to segue into your book with God
Okay.
Talks. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a religious book per se when you call it God Talks. Why don't you give me a little synopsis so my listener hears what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for asking. So, the short and dirty sort of like background to this, you know, I was a fighter pilot, like we talked about. I was in the Marines for 11 years active duty, 2 years drilling reservist, flying F-5s. Most of my career was in the F-18. I went to Iraq twice. You know, went and flew adversary in the F-5, kind of the bad guy airplane, like in Top Gun, the fun side actually. And then I got out, started building businesses, started speaking. That was what I was really doing most of. Speaking and writing books. I was working with business people. You know, most military guys, especially fighter pilots, kind of go in one of two directions. There's only kind of two roads. Either they go kind of a contract route where they end up flying for airlines, or they work for Boeing or something like that, or they turn into entrepreneurs. There's really not many other roads. It's like that's kind of where we went. And I ended up as an entrepreneur. So I started speaking. I was working mostly with business owners, teaching people like branding stuff, communication skills, like a lot of leadership stuff, a lot of peak performance, how to manage your time really well. I have a whole thing that I teach on time compression as a fighter pilot. You know, you're going, sometimes you're going 20 miles a minute towards your target, you know, and that you have to be able to think at a massively fast pace to be able to do that. So when I teach people who feel overwhelmed, especially in the business environment, especially as entrepreneurs get very overwhelmed very quickly. I teach them how to compress time, how to, you know, breathe and make your life very simple. And so in the process of all that, you know, I was always a very, you know, theistic person. I always, you know, believed in God and felt that was important with the church and stuff like that. But I did not have any inclination at all that there was any sort of conversational nature to it at all. In fact, if you had interviewed me even 12 years ago and you had said, "Hey, I had this guy on my show who talks to God," I would have told you 12 years ago, well, that guy's probably a lunatic or a heretic. Okay. So I'm just telling you, 12 years ago, me would be looking at me now, be like, dude, what's up with that guy? Right. But what I started to do is there's journals behind me. I don't know how much of the video you can see, but I literally
we can see it.
stacks of journals, right?
Yes.
And so that's my mom's, by the way. My mom's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. That's her Hall of
That's
Fame.
legit. Sorry,
Yeah.
I get excited.
As a side note, my mom is one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time, and I was there sitting right next to her when she got inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. She's an epic. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's another story. My dad's a famous basketball referee. I'm horrible at basketball. Like it's like there's like a whole story.
You know, you could be the son of a referee, dude. If I look at you, you should have a black and white shirt on you.
Yeah. Oh, dude. By the way, my dad and I have mentored 1,500 basketball referees. So that's another business. That was actually one of the businesses I started, like when I started companies and stuff. Anyway, so back to the story. I'm sitting in my chair, my little chair, my journal. I'm just doing like a thinking exercise, and I'll teach people, you know, especially entrepreneurs, I'll teach folks like the importance of like just thinking. You know, most people don't actually think. Most people don't take time to like pause and to like think about their thinking, which is another layer of thinking, right? Thinking is one layer, then thinking about what you're thinking about is like another layer. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I start having this conversation with God, and he's communicating back to me. Okay. And I will just tell you, it wasn't like flowery and sort of like ethereal. We were talking about a business deal that I was going to have later on that afternoon.
Sure.
And he was giving me very strategic intelligence about how much to charge, how to structure the deal. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I did not think that was possible, you know? So I started doing it, and I was doing it all by myself because the truth is I didn't want to tell anyone about it. I didn't even tell my family about it, dude. I didn't tell my friends. I was sitting there for years developing this practice of learning how to ask these questions and get answers. And then one day I had a friend of mine who I had been sharing this with, and he's like, dude, why don't you just try it at one of your events? Why don't you just do an optional session and tell people how to do it? You know? And I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't do events like this.
Yeah.
I called it wooey wooey. I said, I don't do wooey wooey mindset stuff. I teach marketing, positioning, branding, peak performance, time management, hardcore stuff, dude. Like, I'm a Marine, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, just try like an optional session. So it was a 3-day event that I was having. I had 250 people there.
Wow.
And on the third morning, I said, look, if you want to come early, I've developed this method of asking God questions and getting answers. And if you want to come, you're welcome to just, you know, come and we'll do an hour early. And I had 250 people at this event, and 249 showed up at the optional session. And it's all walks of life, man. It was like Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, skeptics, atheists, agnostics, new agey people, everybody. And I said, look, this is all you're going to do. Take out your journal. I'll put some music on. You're going to ask these 2 questions. And the 249 people start asking questions. And I kid you not, first of all, you could hear a pin drop. Second, what happened is about 3 to 4 minutes into the exercise, there's people literally like weeping as God's bringing them into some sort of memory, or he's bringing them into some cataclysmic moment, or there's some massive transition happening in these people's lives. And I'm like, I'm not even sure what I'm doing at the moment. Like, so I'm
sure, like, okay, dude.
Church,
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, I feel you. I love it, but I get it.
So after this exercise, this woman walks up to me. I read about her in the book, by the way. Her name's Maya. And she has a yellow pad of paper like the one I have in my hand right here. And she comes up to me and she goes, I have a question for you. She said, I'm an atheist. And I have 2 pages of notes right now from God. How does that work? That's what she asked me. She said, how does that work? Now, this is her story. And I will tell you, she told me the whole story, and she told the whole story publicly. So this is something that I'm free to share. From age 5 until age 17, this woman, Maya, was sexually abused by her adopted dad. From 5 to 17. She went off to college, disconnected from that relationship, and went hardcore. She was a big wave surfer, a lawyer, high-powered skier, like ski patrol. Everything she did, she like went crazy. But she never told anyone the story for 40 years, dude. 40 years. She didn't tell anyone the story about what happened when she was 5 to 17. She walks into my event. She asks God, what lies do I believe about me? God says, you believe that you're ugly and not worthy of love. And he took her into a memory, and the memory was her father, And then God healed that during that time in my session. And then he brought her back, and she said, well, what's true about me? And he said, you're beautiful, and I've always loved you. And she's journaling these things as God is speaking this to her. 3 months later, this woman who had never told this story before is standing on the stage at my next event telling this story to 250 other people. Literally, this atheist woman who had this massive breakthrough. And it was about then that I was like, I think I'm just going to go ahead and tell everybody about this. So I wrote this book, but the book is really designed for a skeptical person who may have been hurt by religion. I have a lot of people that have been hurt, like by the church or by somebody who is connected to the church. It's not a denominational book. It's not like a religious, like it's not from any religious angle or whatever. It's a read. It's a story-based book that just shows you step by step, if you're curious, how to ask God questions. And most people tell me they come into the exercise, they come into the book or the exercise. Most people say, I'm not expecting anything to happen. I'll just ask the universe. Some people are like, I'm just going to ask the universe. Sure. I'm like, you're going to be asking God, but yeah. And so, dude, I'm not kidding you. It's probably 20, 30,000 people at this point that have used the tools inside the book. And every day on Instagram or on email, or we have a community online, every day I hear another story. Every day. It's unbelievable to see the life breakthrough and then the business breakthrough. We even talk about business, but I literally will teach business owners, 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure business owners, or just starting out business owners, how to ask God strategic questions about their business and get answers. And dude, this is from a guy who 12 years ago thought I would have called myself now like crazy or heresy or whatever. So anyway, it's been a fun ride.
No, I can actually relate, and I'll give you something. Okay, so here I am. I'm evolving my business into having a shoot house and a pro shop. So I need something with space and something with a pro shop space, so I can have all of this going on at once as an amusement facility. And I'm just like, I need something that's like 8 to 10,000 square feet. And I'm just racking my brain. I'm driving all over Layton, Utah, because I know the city and my dad raised me there. And I'm just like, I used to have a skateboard shop when I was a young man. When I was 13 years old, my dad helped me open a skateboard shop. So here I am thinking to myself, my dad's passed away. I'm like, I have to move out of this location. I'm paying rent. I no longer want to pay rent. I want to own my own building and pay myself the rent. And I'm like, well, I can't find anything. And the rent's coming, like my agreement's coming up with the place I'm currently in. And I want to get out. And I'm just like finding buildings. And I'm like, I can't quite use this one. And I was like, Dad, just tell me, I'm going crazy. I'm looking for the building, Dad. Just, can you please tell me what I should be looking for? And he's like, go to the place that I wanted to make a skate park out of. And I was like, what the hell, Dad? All right, fine. Because when I was younger, we looked at this building. He's like, one day, if you could ever own this building and make a good indoor skate ramp park and all this kind of stuff at the top of Hillfield Road in Layton. So I'm driving and I'm like, all right, let's go look at that old space, right? There's no for sale signs out there or nothing. I go drive, I pull in the parking lot. And I remember this middle section is abandoned. So I look in there with my glasses and I look through the darkness and I see a sign that says for sale in there. Like he had taken it out of the grass and put it in this room. I call the number and the guy's like, yeah, I'm for sale, but it's kind of hard to get this building. So he helped me get the building. He was the realtor. And I was just like, this is blowing me away. So today it thrives. It is the place. And I attribute it to talking to my dad, having an internal prayer, having some type of like, can you help me out? Now I was raised in the Mormon church from birth till, 20s, where, then at that point I started to take on my own skin about everything. So I don't doubt that there's something greater than me. And I don't doubt that somebody kind of held my hand, whether it was my dad or it's within my own self, right? That brought me to that location. But that I got an answer. And today I'm there.
Yeah. That's super cool, man.
It's
interesting. We had one of the leaders in the Mormon church who was connected to me in my events for years. He came up to me after a year. He said, honestly, I'm just so envious of the personal nature in which you talk about, and I thought that's so cool for him to say that, even transparently. Like, I really respect him and really like him. I thought it was interesting how he just talked about that relational. And by the way, everybody who's grown up like in a really religious, really religious background. I grew up in that background. There's always these set of rules, and it's a very black and white sort of world. And if you know something about training, which you obviously know something about training, your audience knows something about training. The person watching and listening to this clearly knows training. Like, if you're training someone to fly an airplane, if you're training someone to fire an M16, if you're training somebody to go on patrol, or you're training somebody to do basic knots, how to steer a ship in combat, riverine operations, whatever it is that you're training someone to do, you start out with a very black and white way of doing things. Like, when you learn a weapon, you learn the 4 weapon safety laws. Like, that your finger's straight off the trigger until you intend to shoot. The weapon's unsafe until you intend to shoot. Like, you have a set of rules that you run by. And that's when you're training someone like the very basics, like when they're really young and immature and like they're just starting out. But there does come a point where you mature to where the world is a lot more complicated and more dangerous, but also more fun,
Right.
And what happens with traditional religion often is they get stuck in that infancy because the rules are frankly very comfortable, like this like black and white world. But then when you get into this new, when you mature, you start to realize, well, first of all, the earth is a lot more complicated than we think it is. It's why this really religious black and white people have an issue. We're recording this right in the middle of the 2024 election. Yeah. Most people have a problem choosing one or the other candidate because there's neither of the candidate is Jesus. Like, nobody's perfect, right? So like,
right.
You don't have, like, oh my gosh, like this guy had an affair. You're like, well, like, welcome to the real world. Like people are messy. Like there's a lot of problems in the world, and nobody's, so
like both of them had an affair. How about that?
Everybody's
okay.
Like,
how about that?
It's
how about
crazy,
that?
right?
Now
so
what? They both have. I mean, like, come on. That's a thing. So you got to really just go at it with. So what I like to say about being an American is I don't have to say who I want to vote for or anything. I go to the curtain, open it up, close it, punch it, close it. I'm out. I don't have to say it. I don't have to flex it. I don't have to like wave it on the back of a truck. I don't have to do any of that. I don't. You don't either. And no one does. Yeah. It's your choice to sit there and open your yap about whatever you want to open it, one side or the other. But I get that they have to make their candidate known and they have to put out the billboards and they have to say, we're the best, or I'm the best, or I'm your man, vote for me, or, give me a shot. Let's look. Alice Cooper, dude, should be the president. Let's elect Alice Cooper.
We got close a couple of times. Jesse Ventura, was governor of Minnesota, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was California.
If he was an American, if he was like actually born here,
he would have won the presidency if he was national.
If Arnold was born in America, he could run for president. Republican or Democrat, I would think that he would give it a good shot.
Yeah.
At least if we're gonna have an actor run the country, then nobody beats the Predator, bro. Come on,
No way.
Arnold, dude. Commando.
I just remember what was the movie? What was the movie where he was holding the guy over the cliff? His name was Sully, and he's Sully. My arm is getting sore. Sully.
What
and then
was that?
He dropped him. He was one of his early movies. I'm trying to remember the. I'll remember.
Someone comment down below when you learn what that movie is. That Arnold is sitting there holding him over it.
He's like, my arm is sore, and then he threw him off the ledge. They said later on, "What'd you do with Sully?" He said, "I let him go."
Him go. That's funny, dude. That's good. That's good. Yeah, Arnold, man. Again, not to like divert off of talking to God, about your like very inner self, but I feel that once you get to this point of what do I do? An entrepreneur's definition is, or the definition of being an entrepreneur is like, you're someone out of a job.
Yeah. Unemployable.
Yeah. You're unemployed, you're like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, okay, when you get to this point of like, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? Who do you talk to?
Interesting. Like reading first, getting to know you before the show, but then hearing your bio, your dad really encouraged that entrepreneurial spirit in you. Like 13 years old, opening that shop that you had. Most parents wouldn't, and that's really commendable parenting. Like the ability to put someone out. Entrepreneurship is risky. You can lose everything. I've lost a lot, like I've made a lot of mistakes, but it was really cool that your dad did that. In the book, I talk quite a bit about neurology. In fact, the first 4 chapters aren't even about conversation with God. They're about how your brain works. And by the way, no matter where you come from, understanding how to code and recode the software of your brain is a personal development skill that you must have, period. The mind works in it like a computer system. I could show you videos of neural networks disconnecting and reconnecting. There is a way using your words to physically, I don't mean this even so much spiritually, I mean physically, neurologically, literally recode the wiring inside of your brain. There's a method to be able to do that. And I talk about it in the book. And most people first have to uncode what their parents taught them about certain things, and then recode those. Like, for example, if you grew up with like money doesn't grow on trees from your parents, well, you have to like uncode that and then recode something else if you want to be successful as a business person or entrepreneur. And really kind of kudos to your dad, because that kind of experimental entrepreneurial thing that he taught you so early on was actually coded into your brain. It's giving you the success that you have now. And created a situation where you were much less averse to risk than most people are. Much less sort of a little more fearless,
I agree with that, because when I had my skateboard shop, I was 13 when I started selling skateboards. It started with grilled cheeses because everybody had a lemonade stand back in the early 90s. And I was like, everybody in the neighborhood has a lemonade stand. Well, my dad, being a Green Beret, he worked in an armory, which was adjacent to the junior high school, and it had the gymnasium for PE and a couple of classrooms, wrestling, basketball, everything went in there. So he got a Coke machine and a vending machine to say, hey, I'm going to have this in here for my guys. So when they get out of their rucks, they can come over and I'm going to make some money off my guys for sodas and candy. And then when the events happened, he was the vending machine inside the armory.
Oh,
so
that's
my job was, I carried a key around my neck. He's like, Aaron, if you walk by these vending machines and they're turned off, you take that key and you just turn them on, okay? With you and your friends. And my friends would all walk with me to the vending machines when they were turned off by the teachers. And I'd just be like, turn it on. And then they would just put their money in and get all their sodas. Their candy was like the old cigarette style vending machine.
Yeah.
So I still have it. I still have it in my garage. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have it. So that went to my skate shop. But what happened was having the Coke machine allowed me to have a stock of like soda in my garage and some candy bars.
Yeah.
So I started selling grilled cheeses and Diet Cokes outside of my house to the neighborhood moms, and they would come and buy all the Diet Cokes, 2 for $1. My dad comes home. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm selling the Diet Cokes and I'm making money and I'm selling grilled cheeses. He's like, how much you making grilled cheese sales? And I said, about $13. He's like, how much you making soda sales? I sold 2 12 packs. And he's like, how much? I said, 2 for $1. And he's like, well, they're 60 cents now. And I was like, oh, I forgot that they bumped up to 60 cents from 50 cents.
Yeah.
Throwing the dollar off, the whole 9 yards. So I had to pay him for the 60 cents back.
Oh, yeah.
So he taught me this. And then I had to pay him for the Diet Cokes and pay him for the grilled cheese, Velveeta, and the bread that I used. But he said, but I kept about $20.
So I have to ask you really.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you. So we're talking like Wonder Bread and Velveeta cheese.
That's right.
Grilled cheese, right?
That's me.
World's greatest grilled cheese. So to go completely off the topic.
Yeah, tell me.
The greatest sandwich I've ever made in my entire life was a Velveeta grilled cheese, Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
Another Velveeta grilled cheese, Wonder Bread. So you have 2 grilled cheeses,
Yes.
right? With a burger in the middle, with grilled onions and cheese and an egg on top, and the bread is grilled cheeses. So I'm just saying, like, if you really want to have a fun weekend,
dude, we should party.
Yeah, you're
I'll make it for you.
For whoever's listening, your spouse might think, might not agree with you, but it is just it's a party in your mouth. That's all. I can say
I'll tell you. And I sold a slice, half of a grilled cheese for $1 to my friends, and I was selling a whole grilled cheese for $2. And this was in like 1990s. And so my dad's like, well, the bread was only like 87 cents.
Triangle cut or square cut? That's the only other question. So
I would triangle cut. Yeah.
So there we go. You did it. You perfect score. So
Thank
10
you.
out of 10 from the East German judge on the grilled cheese. So
yeah, exactly. And so up until 18 years old, my skate shop was thriving in this community. I wound up having an arcade with Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam.
Yeah.
I started getting all these things in there.
Awesome,
so we actually had like a hut, a clubhouse for all of us skaters in Layton to we knew all the police, and I didn't realize why I knew all the police was because they all hung out at my dad's house. They're always like out front, like talking to the Green Beret, but I didn't realize that was a thing. I just thought, why are the cops at my dad's house? My mom and dad's house. But I got broke into, and then I had about $50,000 at 18 years old stolen from me in snowboards and skateboards and clothing. And what happened was these new guys moved in with their parents to Hill Air Force Base, transitioned into Utah. Then I never knew them. They took a crowbar to my front door and just took everything. I didn't have insurance because as a young man, it's like, do I pay $600 a month in insurance or $600 in rent and inventory? I'm selling, right? So I'm like, no one's going to steal from me. I'm Radel. No one's going to steal. No, man. Boom, wiped it away. So at 19, I had to go back to high school, regraduate as a second-year senior. And then I went to college, and then I joined the Air Force, and then got out of the Air Force and did some security. And now I'm kind of just acting and doing movies and television. And here we are today, 20-some, 30 years later. I have a full-on airsoft shop. I have insurance. I have... So you said it's in you, like to not try to have these accidents happen again or these problems, So first thing I did was location, the 3 L's of business. And then I went after insurance to make sure my insurance was in my business. So if I ever got ripped off, I was covered. And that's some lessons that I learned that I thank my father for, which you kind of brought up, which you got me.
Yeah.
There you are. There's me opening up. And I know it's you, and this is about you. And you're the man. F-18. You shoot the watch. Do you guys ever go in there and be like, here I was just coming up on a 6. Boom, 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 shooting the watch. Yeah, right.
I tell at my events, I'll always, in the book too, I tell there's first 3 chapters, there's 3 fighter pilot stories. All my stories are about how I almost killed myself or how the airplane almost killed me. The opening story in the book, this is a true story. I was in between Hawaii and Wake Island, which are about 2,000 miles apart. And I lost an engine in an F-18. Wow. The engine, the checklist to show you how much fuel you need to get on one engine. When you open up your checklist, it ends at 200 miles because the engineers are like, why would anyone fly more than 200 miles with one engine? Because most of the time you're just supposed to land. Well, when you're 1,000 miles away from either airport, you're going to have to fly 1,000 miles. So I broke the single engine. I broke the F-18 single engine record, which is 1,000 miles. I literally broke the record by 800 miles. Yeah. And so, when I tell the stories, so I shoot the watch, although I will say the moment I left the Marine Corps, dude, like literally like as I left the Marine Corps, I took off my G-Shock watch that I had, and I've never worn a watch since then. I do when I'm training, like sometimes if I'm swimming or running or biking, I'll put the watch on and like time, but I haven't worn a watch since then. It feels really good. Actually, not to have time staring me in the face all the time. It's
almost like an addict who has to cut it out. Like some people who have the problem, they put the watch on the other hand. So when they go to look at the time, it's not a regular sequence, and they're like, "Oh, it's on this hand." It's almost like you're like, ditch it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the principles I teach on the time management side is you own time, time doesn't own you. So like a lot of people feel like they're kind of just being run around by the schedule or the time or whatever. So that was one of my symbolic gestures to say I own time. I'm not putting you on my hand. Of course, like a year and a half later, cell phones got really popular. So like I started carrying time around in my pocket all
Right.
of a sudden. But that's another discussion. How to
Well,
master that.
now, have you ever talked to somebody and they got those fancy digital watches that tell them everything, like including like what's online and everything, and you're having a conversation with them, and then they look at it like, is the train here? I'm like, is the train coming? What are you looking at? Are you in a hurry? Do you have to get somewhere? They're like, oh no, I'm just swiping away my spam. I'm like, bro, we're in the middle of a conversation. I'm trying to sell you $5,000 worth of goods, and you're looking at your clock like I'm slow. Like, what's up, dude? I find that's a pet peeve.
Oh, dude, I'm with you. And by the way, one of the best way, like when you put wisdom in your life, man, I teach business owners, entrepreneurs, and fundamentally my job is to bring wisdom, not knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge would be how to code your Apple Watch properly.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom would be like, hey, how about if you just take that off and spend less time with media? And wisdom operates often in the reverse of sort of trends. My approach nowadays, like for example, this week I have a 5-year-old. I have 4 kids, but my 5-year-old's my youngest, and it's her birthday on Tuesday. We're taking her to Disneyland, for 2 days, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you my phone won't leave my house. I live 2 hours away from Disneyland. We're going to drive up. I know how to get there. I don't need a map.
Yeah, right. You don't need to navigate.
Like I know how to drive on the 5 and look at the sign. You know what I mean?
You know where you are. You know your landmark. Yeah.
Well, how am I going to know if there's, you're just going to drive and then you're going to get off the exit, and if there's traffic, then you'll slow you down. What are you going to go around it? So I leave my phone at home. I have a big team, right? 2 businesses, both like growing really fast.
Yes.
And I already told my team last week, I said, I'm completely unavailable Tuesday and Wednesday. And when I say completely unavailable, I mean, if the whole thing burned down on Tuesday morning, I'd find out about it on Thursday morning. I'm not kidding you, like incommunicado. So the amount of peace that you deliver yourself when you disconnect yourself from technology is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. What I can tell you, having worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, is most people panic an hour into that disconnection. And that will show you the level of addiction people have to being connected. There was a time, dude, like you remember this, there was a time when we had the phone, not your phone. Like we had a phone on the wall that I remember my mom got like an extra long cord for, so we could like walk into the kitchen and still talk on the phone if we needed to. Well, when you went on a trip and you had the phone, you checked in. Like I remember calling my parents like 2 days into it. Hey, I got here. They didn't know where I was for like 2 days, So
it's like, anyway. Collect call from, I'm at Chevron. Click.
Totally right. That's exactly what we used to do. That's exactly, yeah.
Because we skated all the time, bro.
I thought I was the only one that knew the collect call trick. So
no, dude. No, I grew up in that same time, dude. We're,
great. Oh, that's
it.
Great. I forgot about the collect call trick. That's right.
It's so true.
If
we're
you're
at Chevron.
35 or under, you're gonna have to Google what we just said, because that's an old era. That's another era.
And we're not. I don't think we're too old, bro. I'm 46 now, so I'm 77, 1977. So 72. I grew up with Zelda, Zelda video games, and Donkey Kong, and now Halo, and now Call of Duty, and now war games on the desert floor with my crew. It's like we just took it to that level. So we grew up playing capture the flag, as the Boy Scouts like to call it. Yeah. We don't call it steal the flag no more. It's capture the flag.
I got a song in my head.
Dude, Contra, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone saving the world from all his aliens in Contra as a video game. Splash, 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 splash. I mean,
that's good, man.
It is. And I just want to see, everybody have a good time in this life that I'm living. And, we can only be the best stewards of what we have. And if you are, driven, you're an F-18 pilot, you've had things layered into you that you probably don't realize, but just comes off of as organic from you, from that type of training, I really appreciate you putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to say, hey, these are the things that have worked for me. They're not possibly going to work for you, but you can give it a shot. You can look into it. I see you have like a chart behind you, like the wisdom pyramid. It's like how much effort, how much wisdom, how much data, reaction. It's all within us. And when I'm talking to my dad, it's really within me, those answers. It's almost like when I talk to some Navy SEAL who goes and does maybe like mushrooms for PTSD or ayahuasca, what they wind up telling me is, Rad, You have to go with it because everything that you're dealing with is already in you.
Yeah.
It's all just you. This is already in here. It's just pulling it out. Like you said, what was it saying to her at that meeting? You know, what was God saying? And he's like, you still are beautiful. You can still be loved, and you can still be 100% successful, and you can put this behind you, kind of thing. Like or however you have to cope with your traumatic stress. It's out there, right? I'm a big believer in snowboarding. I like to snowboard 3 to 5 times a week, be outside in the mountains, be outside in the desert. I like to go swim. I like to go to the gym and hit boxing every day.
Yeah.
Just something to keep myself from just going stagnant, my brain, my heart, you know, etc.
Yeah. So frequency wise, nature's a really good place to go if you want to experiment, especially if you want to experiment with a conversation with God. And I always tell people that word I just used is the most important word. You are free to experiment. You know, like you mentioned psilocybin. I haven't done any of the things that my buddy, like MDMA, the MDOET, the frog molecule stuff. Like I have all my entrepreneurial friends. And I will just tell you, having not experienced that, but hearing everyone's story, essentially people are telling me the same thing that I already knew, which is there's a natural world and there's supernatural, and the veil between those two is very thin. So like there's things that simply happen in the world that we simply can't explain. I believe, by the way, eventually science will explain those things. Like a mom who's trying to save her baby who lifts an entire car up over her head, and you're like, how is that even possible? You're like, well, it's not possible, but it is apparently possible, right? So like earlier today in the interview, I said something like, it's supposed to be impossible, but apparently it was possible. Like every single thing that we thought was impossible, that sound barrier, which I broke about 1,000 times or whatever, like we did it routinely. We didn't even feel it. Half the time you didn't even know you went through what we call the number, like going supersonic. And John Glenn's like, you know, in Glamorous Glennis. It's just eventually the thing that's impossible becomes not just possible, but like routine. I mean, it becomes so routine that Concorde can fly 300 people back and forth, right? And
3.5 hours, yes.
Speed of light, same thing. Like people are like, you know, Einstein, speed of light's like impossible bear. So eventually,
it'll be
like
harnessed.
Every impossible thing we always end up figuring out. And so there's healing methodologies, there's body frequencies, there's things that are coming down the pike. Once pharma gets out of the way, we can like put some of these things in place. And everybody who's had those experiences, those like psychedelic experiences, or frankly, anyone who's had experiences that I've had, like when you walk conversationally with God, as long as I have, you see and experience some phenomenally crazy supernatural things. I've seen people, I'm not exaggerating, dude. I've seen people instantaneously healed from back problems, neck problems, hand problems, diseases, like literally in front of my eyes, to the point at which I was like, I don't even know what just happened there, dude. Like it's crazy. But there's something scientific, there's something metaphysical, there's something supernatural. The mind is so powerful. Like when the mind gets behind something, the body will often follow completely behind it. And if I don't understand it, that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means I can't explain it, you know? And having that experimental, being experimental, like I said, a very immature approach sometimes is very black and white, like this is right and this is wrong and this is right and this is wrong, and there's some right and wrong. There's definitely some, like, you know, be kind to people, love everyone, don't murder, don't steal, you know, like what they did to your shop, that was wrong. Like there is some black and white there, but there's also a lot of room in this world for experimentation. That's why I always tell people, especially skeptics, like this book was written for skeptics, dude. It was written for people who've been hurt by religion, who have been feel separated from God, who are skeptics. It's not like a Christian-y book with a lot of verses and songs and stuff inside of it. It's very practical. And I always tell people, like, just try it. Like the exercises are in the book. I created a series of 7 audios. They're my gift to you. They're totally free. You put your headphones on for 15 minutes, 7 straight days, and change your life. Like it's one thing to listen to an interview and be like, I don't know, I don't think that's true. And it's another thing just to be like, I don't know, let's try it. Right. You know, it's worth an experimentation. If nothing happens, you know, you can be like, hey, 1-star review, Ed. But
exactly.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay. I can deal with it. I've been shot at. So you can 1-star me if you want to. We can still be friends, you know?
But give it a shot and see what happens.
Try it out. Like,
maybe it might be 2 stars,
you know?
okay? It may not just be 1 star. It might get 2 stars. Something might make sense.
This world is great, too, because no one ever writes 3s. 3s are like the never. You ever look at any book? So it's either got 5 and 4 stars and 1s and some 2s, but there's never a 3. It's such our world. Like nobody in the middle who's like, I don't know, ever writes
the
anything.
pages, the paper just didn't feel right between my fingers.
Yeah.
I will tell you though, I have touched a book that felt really good though. I had a client that sent me a book, and I was just like, this feels good. It was about like bare knuckle fighting, and it felt like bare knuckle fighting, that kind of a thing. And still, I was just like, wow. So, I mean, you can just get 3 stars off the book feel.
Yeah, just start with 3, baseline 3.
Start with 3. And also, if you get any of Ed's books, okay, and you read it and you have a review to leave, please leave a review at the place that you bought it, or, if you're online, or really support local mom and pops. If they have his book on the shelf, you should snag one from them, because they're putting their dime into his book in advance for you to believe that book should be read by you, especially your local mom and pop neighborhood store. Support them, right? Like Weller's here in Salt Lake City. He took it over from his parents who passed away, and he's like, I've got to keep the bookstore going. That's what I got to keep it going. That's his motto. Books.
And if they don't have it on the shelf, they can order it, by the way. They have things available everywhere. So
exactly. Yeah. And do you ever have your book at an airport? Has that happened yet?
We're still working with Hudson, by the way. So Hudson is the main bookseller across the airports, and a little behind the scenes on publishing. So that's my 6th book. So I'm very familiar with the publishing industry. Hudson has its own buying system. They have their own shelf stocking system. How you get listed on Hudson can be a pretty penny, by the way, depending on where you are in the bookstore. So we're just working with them on location and placement. It'll be soon, but I
can't wait to see you like on TikTok or Instagram, like looking over your shoulder, like, this is my book and I'm signing it for you right now.
Right in the airport.
Yeah, dude.
So I could do that. I'm going to give you another secret. So I started today on the interview by telling you how to get out of tickets. Yes. I'm going to give you another secret. You can't tell anyone, though. Like, watch the podcast, delete it. Don't tell anyone I told you the story. A friend of mine 11, 12 years ago told me about this, and I've been doing it ever since. It's called reverse shoplifting. So if you're an author, reverse shop. So just so you know, black and white, shoplifting is illegal. Like, you can't walk into a store and take something out of the store that's not yours. But what you can do is you can leave something in the store for them. Okay. So reverse shoplifting works like this. Like, this is the book, right?
Yeah.
This is the hardcover version of the book, right? If I took this book in my backpack into Barnes & Noble or Hudson Booksellers, which I've done, by the way, don't tell anyone, and you stick it right up there on the shelf, like very prominently right up there on the shelf. Dude, no, I believe it. Someone can buy it. Hudson keeps all the money, right? It's all theirs. Like, it's got a barcode. So and often what it'll do is trigger a reorder. So they're like, oh, we're out of this book.
Oh,
so like, I would get in trouble. Don't tell anyone.
From downtown. He's going for 3. Oh, and not only that, your mom is a basketball coach and your dad is a ref. So I'm going to use that analogy, bro. Holy cow.
My buddy Craig Duswell told me that story. So yeah, I love reverse shoplifting. It's totally legal.
I love that.
Get in trouble. You won't get in trouble at all. Stick it right there prominently on the bookshelf. And often I'll reverse, like if I'm heading through the airport, like if I'm transiting through like Chicago, whatever, I'll reverse shoplift my book, take a picture of me and the book, and then drop it on Instagram.
I would be notorious for that. I need to write a book just to do this. What? That's awesome. It's like, it's not me. It's not me. It's not me on the cover. I swear. I don't have that beard. That's not me. The other guy with the beard left it. Oh, well, Ed, you have been a wonderful guest, and I would like to just extend an open invite to you to come back. I haven't even cracked into the Ed that I think is
Dude,
deep inside of you.
I will.
You know what I mean? And your books, God Talks, Warrior, The 21-Day Miracle, Take the Shot. These books are already out everywhere. God Talks, has that come out yet, or is that going to be released September?
Yeah, no. So God Talks is out there. We just hit like a whole bunch of bestseller lists again. Massive month, by the way. Huge month this last month. Lots of media and stuff. That's the book to start with. 21-Day Miracle comes right behind that, and that is a book about speed. So it is a book about how to accomplish a lot in a short period of time. I routinely do this in my life. It's strategic sprints. But I would start with God Talks. It's definitely my most in-depth book. It's for sure the most fun. If you had a good time with this interview, like we were laughing, I have a very light approach to life, and there are a lot of stories, a lot of self-effacing humor. You will laugh. It's a funny book. There's a lot of good fighter pilot stories in it. And like I said, give it a shot. Like you have no idea what's available to you on the other side of a simple conversation with God. There's transformation. We cover a lot of different areas. The most common experience is somebody, first of all, feels a lot more purposeful. Second, a lot of times people break through money barriers. There's quite a few money barriers that happen sort of mentally. Quite often someone gets a change to their body, maybe even wanting to lose weight, maybe put on some muscle, sleep a little bit better, feel more vital. All those things come through a rewired brain. Like the way you think about things affects every single thing in your life. And there's nothing better to retrain your mind than a simple conversation with heaven that comes down to earth and changes your life. So yeah, the website is godtalks.com. It's the easiest website to remember.
That is.
Godtalks.com. You can go there, buy the book in any format that you want to. I'm very available and accessible, by the way. So if you connect to me and read the book and tell me your story, if you send it in through any of the emails in the book, it will get to me, by the way, eventually. It might not come right away, but I love hearing your story. I'd love to be able to connect with you. Thanks, by the way, Rad, for the interview. Also, thank you for the invite back. I had a blast.
Yes.
I kind of like the interviews where it's free form and we get to laugh and tell stories and talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger and things like that.
I mean,
I really enjoyed that.
Because a lot of folks that I interview, they're like, Rad, I love this. This has been like one of the best things. It's almost like, well, do you just want to hang out, or like, can your mom let you sleep over tonight? Let me get the phone. Let me go get the phone with the long cord to see if Ed can come over. Yo, Ed, can you come over? Okay, I'm at Chevron. Click.
That's good. That's good. That's
Simple,
good. I
dude.
should come up and go shooting with you with one of these with one of your paintball.
Come, airsoft. It's airsoft. I got a tank. We drive a tank out in the desert.
Quickly.
Nah, you'd be surprised. You know,
Really?
Yeah, a lot of guys see it's great because the Air Force wants to be infantry, and the infantry want to be the Air Force. So outside of a military Air Force base, I got all these guys that are like, is this where I could put boots on and maybe hunt somebody? And I'm like, come to me.
Yeah.
Come to me, you know? So if you want to go get in the trenches or frag a grenade or, you know, shoulder to shoulder, we're not here to mop up your tears, just your blood. So if you're going to show up, don't cry about it. Like if you get shot by a 9-year-old, take it. All right.
That's good, man.
Give him a high five.
That's good.
So you're on my team next time, kid. I tell you, man, I'm very passionate about it. I love war games, and I've been doing it for 20 years at this level, let alone growing up through my father and his team and just being around the whole environment and just going on their normal hikes up the mountains where we lived with like 10, 12 guys all in plaid and Levi's and like belt buckles and stuff. It's a whole A-team though. And they never once said, why's little Radel? Why's little Aaron, 10-year-old, rappelling off of waterfalls with us up here on our fun little time off and stuff? So I'm really blessed to have grown up in that life. And now cool. I get to talk to guys like yourself. And, you know, here we are, bro. It's just a great
fun,
time,
man.
Fun. I gotta say thanks to Brandon Webb, who runs this website. And he gives me the opportunity to talk to the Ed Rushes of the world and, you know, be able to bring their stories to our platform, which you can find everywhere. SOFREP Radio, SOFREP.com is the main resource. You can also go to all platforms like iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. And if you want to listen to me more in a book format, you can go check out, I read Cold Fear and Steel Fear, which is the Finn. I am Finn, Chief Finn, Navy SEAL, and all the other characters in the book, by the way. Okay, you know what that's like, huh? Sitting in a thing for 8 hours, reading every single character in a book in Finnish in Iceland. I loved it. Thank you for leaving comments. And Ed, on behalf of godtalks.com and your book, I want to say thanks for hitting us up to be on the show. And again, you are invited to be back.
Thanks.
Yes. And to my guests again, check out sofrep.com/book-club and also theloadoutroom.com. I'm going to be putting up stuff on theloadoutroom.com. You'll see that start to pop off. Go check it out. Give a like and subscribe. Comment down below. Find me on the internet. My name is Rad. On behalf of Ed, saying peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.